Rick Jackson is the author of Thin Book of Poems, most recently Resonance, the 2010 Eric Hoffer Award winner. He also has 2 books of translations, one from Slovene and one from Italian, 2 critical books, 2 edited anthologies, and 2 edited volumes of poems. He was awarded the Order of Freedom Award from the President of Slovenia, Guggenheim, Fulbright, Witterbrenner, NEA and NEH fellowships, 5 Pushcart Prize appearances, and teaching awards from UTC and Vermont College. In 2009, he won the AWP George Garrett National Award for Teaching and Arts Advocacy. He edits poetry miscellany.
This is a little strange. Most of the poems that I've written in the past have been fairly long. And when I get up to read, I usually can read just 2 or 3. I'm always telling students to condense, and so that's what I've done here. This semester, I was teaching a prose poem workshop, and although we don't know what a prose poem is, it's been sort of fun to try to figure out. And I've given them exercises, and one of the most successful ones was when they actually had a picture like this and had to react against it. So I did it myself. Most of them I haven't shown to people, and so it's the first time I'm going to try to read some of these. Hopefully the poems act independently of the pictures, but I think the pictures show you something about the catalyst. All these poems have to do with seeing, and they use a lot of similar images as they sort of reverberate against one another. 2 of them are actually slightly longer and older poems that I did earlier, both late last semester and earlier this semester.
Is that a sparrow?
It's a bird. It's so technical, Richard. I had just a few seconds to snap it. And most of these pictures, ones that I took, and some are ones that, a couple of ones that I had used as catalysts for poems. Anyways, for this first one, it's simply called Bird. And it just goes like this. Breath fills the decayed tree. The sky is still a syllable. Light lives inside those wings. We have no word to describe the insect's tremors beneath the bark, or to measure the currents between here and the next tree. What do we know? The night won't fall, as we like to say, and I'll wait till the last star introduces itself, though most of them are galaxies. What he sees is what we have clear-cut or strip-mined. Sunlight strips carefully across the water. I don't have any words that could apologize. I don't have any words that could apologize to him or to us. The ripples make a transcript I can't read. How often we think of things which are only our ideas about them. The only flowers that speak are the absent ones. The bird knows each name is a superstition. Each origin has already taken flight, already landed, invisible, unbearable, and trying to sing. I actually finished that at a conference in Slovenia. I had been to this conference on ecological poetry, and that's how that poem sort of evolved. And this is from a road trip in Romania. Those hills in the distance are not hills. They're actually, they don't know what they are. They're mounds. They're man-made. And they have no idea what the purpose for them was. It's called Faith in Romania. It must be the child is turned to call us to follow. The cart is filled with the harvest. Ahead of them, the road can't decide between harvest and planting. The camera has refused to read an invisible dust. It rises like prayer. They are headed towards mounds that are man's early attempts to reach heaven. A hidden road turns left. Not yet dusk, but already the stars are waiting to drink the darkness. My gaze here stumbles through lost centuries. The early moon behind me pretends it is a clock. They could be heading to Emmaus or Egypt. What they seek is what we find in them. We are all prisoners of our own happiness. Okay, this is from Canyon de Chelly in Arizona. It's just called Hands. One interesting thing about this, an interesting canyon, it goes on for about 7 or 8 miles, sort of angles through mountains in northern Arizona, northeastern Arizona. And it was a place where there was a big Indian massacre. Basically it was led by Kit Carson. Sometimes we push so hard into the earth, we leave the handprint of desire. Without rocks, there is no soul. So many figures keep disappearing into the earth. The wind against the rocks is not the wind. It is spirit. The rocks wear it like a skin. You can hear the voice of the slaughtered in the light that echoes from 1805 and the other end of the canyon. It has come a long way to touch us. The sound of the flute player and the man who dances to that silent music, or is stunned into silence at our own ignorance, show how dangerous it is to love the earth. Sometimes the dust picks up and hands sift its memories. When was it we first needed words to touch each other? This, Richard, you should know this. This is a little town called Lidice in near Prague. It was a town that after the partisans killed Heydrich, who was a leader of the Nazis in Czechoslovakia, they wiped out this town and another town and sent everybody to camps. A couple of children returned, but most of them died in the camps, along with everybody else. So the poem is just called Lidice. They are looking at a town made from splinters of memory. On the opposite hill, only a marker where the church stood. Even now, their gaze is vulnerable, though the Nazis have left decades ago. A whole town that no longer has a name on the map. It's as if these children have returned from the camps alive, to dream or pray what we can hardly begin to imagine. What they are asking is that we find a way to love one another, to find some whiff of God in the air. What they understand is the way the pearl gives the oyster its troubling dreams. For several years I worked for the Sarajevo Committee in the Yugoslav Wars. And this was a poem that I had written in the fall, late fall, in December. And it was based on a picture that I had remembered that had come across our desk. And I don't know if you can see carefully what that is, but there's a man raised with his fist like that and a child underneath him. So the poem's called Bosnian Elegy. The tops of trees still clutch fiercely the last light. There's a bird caught in a chimney. Its complaint trembles down the empty corridors of the heart. The moon struggles to define itself behind a few thin masks of cloud. I remember the sax player in Sarajevo, playing Solitude, as if Coleman Hawkins fingered the keys as he did on that old recording my father kept, each layer of harmony rubbing against the wall and slipping through the alley to where, later, the market would be bombed. Why can't I get that song out of my head? How much space does any memory take up? After a while, our pasts become abandoned buildings, or like the giant supernova whose light appeared for a few days before moving through space to another galaxy. There's always another mass grave to discover. The crickets begin to panic. For a while our memories fall into the crevices of the mind. Our words imitate our losses. For a while we too can forget the love we didn't show or the people we have hurt. We become the empty spaces in our dreams. Tonight, a few invisible stars still keep their distance. I can hear the leaves fall through the darkness. In hell, Aeneas grabbed the empty air he thought was his mother. Plato thought the real took up no space at all. All these memories seem out of tune. Hawkins' solitude was all that he could bear. In a while the bird stops, but the sound keeps coming. There's always an invisible wind that rips at the stars. Sometimes I think there is an invisible other who occupies every mirror. My friend says she avoids trouble by becoming invisible. My voice distrusts my ear. There's always a few memories to scar the air. There's no secret that is secret. Our hopes are only grace notes. There's always that image I can't push aside. The family outside Banja Luka, Bosnia, in the charred cellar. The man's fist raised above the other bodies, melded in defiance where they were burnt alive. Tonight, the hissing of stars is more than I can bear. This is like one of the weirdest pictures I've ever seen. Look at the eyes of the stag. It's sort of like, okay man, you're doing what you need to do. It's a poem I actually read in the fall, and I had written over the summer, and I was talking to Daniel about it the other day, and I just thought I'd read it again. This poem's called Otherness. It is part of our disguise that our dreams are lived by someone else. Thales dreamt an eclipse in 570 BC and stopped a war. You arrived subconsciously in a sentence I was reading from a book I never finished. What we say gets its meaning from what we don't say. Persephone kept her love hidden underground. So much of what we feel is habit. We need to search for a way to say what is real. The air filled with the simple pungency of cut grass, the flowers barely breathing, the black and azure butterflies mating in clusters by the side of the trail, the melancholy taste of blackberries some bear had abandoned at my approach, the stag that lifts its head unconcerned, whatever drifts away, whatever stays. How do we keep our own dreams from touching each other? I remember as a boy fearing for the snail as it crawled out from its shell. I imagined for love. I couldn't coax it back. What we do is a metaphor for what we don't do. These are the only ways to tell you what I mean. In Chagall's drawings, the faces of his lovers are surprised by their own sadness that they have not become one of his angels smudged across the sky. Their nights disguise themselves among the noontime shadows. At the tomb, Mary Magdalene thought Jesus was just a gardener. What we know gets its meaning from what we don't know. It is why we create stories for those Mayan cities still buried beneath the jungles of Mexico. Everything is a metaphor. Those butterflies on the trail earlier, for instance, I thought they carried part of the sky on their wings, or the cloud rising like a ruined column from some ancient site supporting the sky's idea of it. In a while, the wind convinces it to collapse, as it does with so many of our dreams. What we dream gets its meaning from what we don't dream. Memory betrays us. The sentence I read as you appeared was a piece of smooth ocean glass when Nicholas of Cusa dreamt of spiritual beings living near the sun. Anaximanda knew we emerged from sea creatures. What if you had appeared with those few snowy egrets this morning who seemed puzzled or fearful at our presence? What we love gets its meaning from what we don't love. The air here seems filled with fragments of some other day. In a drawing I saw once, my words shivered for how the stag gazed tenderly at the wolf, as if to say she had no other choice, as if to forgive her as she ate so ravenously from its side. No, never again have I dreamt such a perfect love. Okay, and this last one, just called Shorelines. It's a horrible pun, I guess, for a poem, but slow burner? Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. Nobody sees what the other person sees. It's when you pick up a piece of driftwood and it is not driftwood. It's the forgotten place it came from. Or when your dreams wander along the shoreline and your words no longer believe the things they refer to. I don't remember why we were there or why we found ourselves on opposite shores. What drifted in between us were images I saw once of bodies piled on another shore by the child soldiers of Kony in Uganda. The heart is crisscrossed by these lines. You want me to say the driftwood symbolizes something. It doesn't. In a little while the moon will rise on its dim of light as it always does. The sky will hoard a few stars. The insects will try to talk to them. You have to know the difference between the sound of a planet and the sound of a star. The owl pretends it doesn't care if you hear him. What I want you to see is that this is a love poem, and it only exists if you see it that way. Thanks.